Welcome to the FormABLE Podcast. My name is Jamie Sparling. I'm the head instructor of Affinity Martial Arts and Wellness in Wausau, Wisconsin. Today, my guest is Russell Dulay. I met Russell during the Ghost Associate Instructor Training Camp, and it was an amazing experience. And honestly, prior to that, I didn't think much of online training. And I got so much out of it, and I really wanted to bring Russell in and have a conversation. Russell, how are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Just got done doing a private lesson and it went really, really well. Thanks for asking. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
How are things in your life?
They're good. I recently moved to Washington, D.C.,
Mm-hmm.
right? My wife is in the military, so we're just bouncing around all the time. But it's a nice change of scenery. It's nice getting to it's nice and not nice to get to start from scratch, right? It's a nice
Mm-hmm.
journey. It's a nice process, and it's a good time to really explore where I want to go with my where I want to go with what I want to do, I should say.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. It's exciting, and I got to experience snowfall for like I don't know if it's my first time, but it's definitely the first time with my kids. So that was nice to share with them, and they're just out there in the snow, tongues out, and everything. So it's good. It's good.
Brother, thank you for sharing that. That's just wonderful. Whenever you can experience anything for the first time with your children and you see their eyes light up and there's like magic that's going on, it's like you almost forget how absolutely freaking cold it is at that moment. You know what I mean? You're like, oh my gosh,
Right.
it's just such a beautiful thing. Such a beautiful thing. You have
Sure is.
continued with Ghost quite a bit, all
Yes,
right?
sir.
And I absolutely admire that, and I think it's a great system. It'll always be something, a part of something that we do. But the way
Mhm.
you're on fire with this thing really, really inspires me.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You were able to teach a ghost seminar with, was it at,
Uh, it was with the United States Martial Arts Hall of Fame. Yeah.
yeah. Could you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that experience of introducing Ghost into that? And
Sure.
and also my viewers, they might not know what Ghost is, so feel free to explain all those little
it's like
pieces.
a it's like a Manchurian candidate moment, right? Where you're like, what is ghost? And you and I have been drilled on the definition of
Mm-hmm.
ghost. That was like the number one thing at the associate course. But for those of you who don't know, Ghost is an elusive combat system designed for sport fighting where the rules allow you to stand and strike. So that could be K1, boxing, Muay Thai, MMA, anything that allows you to stand there, throw some hands, throw some legs if that's allowed, maybe even headbutt if you're into that.
Left way.
Uh, yes, thank you.
You got it, brother.
um, Ghost can apply, right? It takes a lot of influence from Filipino martial arts. You see that in the footwork, you see that in some of the striking angles, and a lot of influence also comes from Jeet Kune Do with the interception, with the timing, with making sure we're keeping our initiative, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jeet Kune Do is not supposed to be a very passive art. Ghost is just the same. We're taking initiative. We're making sure we're constantly ahead of the game, right? But I took that in the kickboxing route, right? Like um, Jamie, our coach Jake, he's a professional boxer now. So when he teaches, it's mostly just boxing. Um, for me, being in Jeet Kune Do, martial arts, etc., I like to kick. I'm a short guy. Sometimes I need my long weapon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I like to focus more on the kickboxing portion of Ghost. So when I felt like I had, put the time in,
Mm-hmm.
I sub every now and then for the Ghost International Zoom class. I feel comfortable teaching Ghost. I've been teaching Ghost in California for 4 years at this point. So I threw my name in the bidding, right? I was like, hey, I'd love to show everyone at the United States Martial Arts Hall of Fame what Ghost is. This is what it's about, and my big selling point for Ghost is it wasn't so much the curriculum for any art that sets it apart, right? Because everyone knows how to punch, kick,
Mm-hmm.
trap, grapple, etc. The difference comes in the training method. And the way you apply those principles is what sets you apart from other arts, right? And that's not to take away from any other art. I think everything has value. But if you take these elusive principles and you showcase them at a very general level, now everyone who participates in the seminar can take those principles and put it into their art. They can put it into their Jun Fan, their karate, their taekwondo, their Wing Chun, sort of, kind of, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you take the principles and you bend them because they're principles, they're not laws, right? And you make it work for you. And no matter where you want to take your martial arts game, Ghost can help you become a more elusive and effective striker. So that was my proposal. I actually filmed a mock session for the board, sent that over, and then I think 2 months before the event, I got the thumbs up. So I started ironing that out.
That's amazing. Guru Phil Norman, he created the ghost system, right? I bet he was excited whenever you were able to do that at the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he and Jake, they gave me praise. They gave their support all the way. I believe they both shared that Ghost was getting on bigger stages, right? Not just the professional ring, because Jake's boxing, X is in professional MMA or was. I'm not sure if he's still active, but now you get it at a casual hobby level, right? It's not this super esoteric art, although it could be viewed that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now it's, hey, look, everyone, this is fairly new, but it's not so new that you're going to be lost, and it's very accessible in this day and age, especially since Coronication happened. That's what I like to call it. Sorry.
You're good,
That
brother.
way, it doesn't step on anyone's toes, right? Vacation, coronavirus, everyone knows what we're talking about. No political views on it or anything. But Coronication, a lot of things went online, and the benefit to that for Ghost was they took it and they absolutely ran with it. They owned it, and they have a very good online program. And if you could do something online, you could do it in person, right?
Mm-hmm.
So being them polishing the online platform for me as someone who lives in the U.S., Ghost is based in England, right? Um, Me being able to train consistently with them on an online platform with live feedback made sure that I could pass it on to my students properly. And then I could bring that to a larger audience like the United States Martial Arts Hall of Fame. So that was really cool. And it was great to bounce ideas off of them and really refine the package, as it were.
That's beautiful, brother. That it's such an amazing system. And I remember when Guru Phil was working with us, he had talked about how the shapes from the numerato were
Yes.
added into the boxing, and I just thought that was so fascinating. Absolutely love it. What's your favorite move in Ghost?
Oh, oh no. Honestly, and this sounds like a cop out, but it's the stepping jab, because the stepping jab sets up your range. It sets up um, it sets up all your follow up techniques, and once that range gets compromised, it's like, okay, I got to start thinking off the back foot now. Am I going to go hang, counter hang, pivot hang, open hang?
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm throwing all these terms out there for your viewers. They're just words for angles that we hit, right? But because the step and jab and your front kick are your longest tools in this format, if that range gets compromised, okay, now it's time to start thinking about my other avenues here. And if you can win a fight with a jab, why do you need to utilize anything else? If you could win with a front kick, why do you need to utilize everything else? It's not that it's your only tool, but it sets everything else up for success. So step and jab, especially me being a shorter guy. If I can establish a range, and if I can hit the mind, that.
Mm-hmm.
If we can hit the mind, then we can dominate the fight.
I don't think that sounds like a cop out, brother. I remember in the instructor portion that Jake actually had accredited winning a lot of his fights to the stepping jab.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. So, with your, could you give us a little martial arts background of some of the things that you've done in the past?
Yeah, actually to this day, I've been training for I got to do math, 15 years now. So
To
to the
this
day,
day.
yeah, to this day, my wife actually she got the contact information for my first instructor in Jeet Kune Do and Filipino martial arts, and she's like, "This is something you love. This is something you really want to do. You're obsessed with Bruce Lee. I know, typical fanboy, right? You're obsessed with this. Go to these guys. They live in town. Just go see them." And I did. So I started with Jeet Kune Do and Filipino martial arts in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
That was under that the chief instructor of the school was Grandmaster Ed Goko Galang. He at that time wasn't really teaching that much. You know, he has his job, he has other things he has to do. So my primary instructors were Master Gabriel Aldebott and uh, Jeremy Swangle. But I trained with them for like 6 years. So 2010 through 2016, I've been training with them, you know, 8 times a week. Yeah, 8 times a week because they were open Monday through Saturday, and then they had a morning and afternoon session on Thursday and Friday. So I did every single class available. I fell in love with it, right? I was like, oh, this is good. This is the Bruce Lee stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and now I get to swing a stick too. That was, that's awesome. And they really gave me a really good foundation, um, without trying to like discredit other schools or anything.
That's always nice.
Yeah, they my instructors, their primary concern was, hey, can you fight, right? And it's not like, can I be a cage fighter? It's like, hey, if you're out there, can you defend yourself? And I think that's really important, um, insofar as teaching like reality-based martial arts, right, or
Mm-hmm.
or self-defense martial arts, because sometimes you can get a self-defense art that doesn't necessarily give you. It might give you the tools, but it doesn't necessarily give you the conditioning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the tool is no good if the tool is weak. And they made sure that we could apply under pressure. So that was a lot of my upbringing. The motto for our Las Vegas school was "bumps and bruises are free," and it was absolutely true. Um, but after that, uh, my wife moved to Miami, so I went with her because I love her.
Good
That's what I
idea.
have to say, right?
Yeah,
If
yeah,
she's watching,
yeah.
um, I also get her an extra $300 a month because she's married. So
Okay.
she gets the benefits too.
Yeah.
Sorry, I digress.
You might pay for that one later,
Miami,
brother. I don't know.
yeah, you just have to take everything I say as truth.
Uh,
Um, but you don't know better, right? But we moved to Miami in 2016, and I know I still want to do Jeet Kune Do. I still want to do Filipino martial arts. So I start training under Sifu Dwight Woods. You know Sifu Dwight,
I do.
great guy. He's super nice, super awesome, very very technical. And what was nice about him was he wasn't a complete opposite of my training in Vegas. Right, my training in Vegas was hard. It was, can you fight? Make sure you can do a buttload of push-ups, squats, sit-ups, pull-ups. Make sure you can spar. Don't be afraid of a live stick. Almost like all the old school 90s stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
not as hardcore, thank goodness. That might have turned me off if you know the Lunak stories. So
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. First generation. The first generation really all usually gets the brunt of things, you know? I mean,
yeah,
so that makes total sense.
rough. Um, but the contrast with Dwight was he was very smart. Not that the Vegas guys weren't smart, but
Mm-hmm.
he made sure your understanding wasn't just surface level,
Mm-hmm.
right? You didn't just have a myriad of techniques. You understood its cultural and historical significance and how it could be applied today.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't just teach me the art, he also taught me how to think. And by that, I don't mean I have to think the same way that he does.
Gave
He's
you a filter.
very, what's that?
He gave you a filter,
Yes, sir. Yes,
right?
sir. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because what's important too is you don't necessarily think the same thoughts as your instructor, right? Because then you're just a carbon copy. But Sifu Dwight made sure that his students, myself included, if you were smart anyway, you understood not what to think, but how to think. So you like you said, you put things through a filter. You understand if you have X, there's also Y, but not just X and Y, but that transition between X and Y, right?
Mm-hmm.
That might be a horrible explanation, but Seafood Dwight was very good about making sure you understood like a root and then the patterns that came off of that root, the branches that came off of that root. Because now it's principle based, not necessarily technique based.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have the principle, then you can apply it to whatever it is that you do. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2018, I did Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the Ghost instructor camp. I actually started buying all the Ghost modules, the online modules in 2016 when I knew I was going to start moving because I wasn't sure if there was going to be Jeet Kune Do in Miami at that time. I hadn't done my research. So I started training the online modules in 2016 also. Went to Minnesota, met you,
Mm-hmm.
awesome time at the Ghost instructor camp, Ghost associate camp, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, got a good grade on that, as you know. And then in 2019, we moved to California. I tried a few Jeet Kune Do schools in my area. Very cool guys, very nice guys. I just didn't quite vibe with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's when I decided I would do my own thing. I got permission from all my instructors to teach. And then in 2020, I actually got my contract finalized with the Air Force Base there for me to start teaching. And I found out that Seattle was hosting a Jun Fan Gung Fu conference with Sigung Taki Kimura, right?
Beautiful.
I've always wanted to meet Sigung Taki. I saw him in A Warrior's Journey, the Bruce Lee documentary, right? It was like Taki Kimura, Bruce Lee's highest ranked student. Like everyone knew about Sigung Dan, right? And I was like, I don't know much about Taki Kimura. And ever since I saw that documentary, it's like I would love to train with him, right? I saw this as an opportunity. I know he was already old at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go have fun. I go out there March 2020, have a great time. They welcomed me with open arms. It was very familial, and I had never felt that in a big Jeet Kune Do conference, right? Usually everyone has their little cliques,
Mm-hmm.
and like the Dan Innocent, wow,
No,
horrible.
no, I'm with you.
Yeah, though the Inasano camps, those are great. I love them, right? Um, but the Seattle bunch was where I felt most connected to everybody, even as the new guy, right? So that was a nice feeling. And since 2020, I've been seeing them every year for upkeep in Jun Fan Gung Fu. In 2023, I became an affiliate instructor under Sifu Andy Kimura. Um, that was the year I was also nominated to the United States Martial Arts Hall of Fame by Sifu Andy and one of my seniors in Jun Fan Gung Fu, Sifu Matt Emery. And then 2024, taught at the Hall of Fame, taught Ghost at the Hall of Fame. And here I am today with the one and only Jamie Sparling.
My man, I appreciate that. Uh,
Yeah.
brother, when you spoke of connecting with the Seattle group, that really spoke to me because sometimes, I had just been able to speak with someone else about this not that long ago, but sometimes I think if I can connect with the instructor, it's almost more important than the specific art for
Yes.
me as a person. And that's what I got from you, and when we first start this, we're grabbing things, And I mean, I used to look at the Black Belt magazine and Inside Kung Fu and then order the VHS tapes and whatever, right? So everything was style and system based.
Mhm.
But the longer I'm in it, like I really need to be able to get along with my instructor. If he says something to me and it makes sense in this head, then the art isn't that much that isn't that important. Not it is important, but that connection with that group or those
Mhm.
people is equally as important. What did you find about that group where you were just like, huh, I think I found a tribe?
That's a great question. Let me start by saying, with the Vegas guys, with the Miami bunch, they were also my tribes, right?
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Those were very good people, and it's because they were smaller schools. Um, it's very easy to feel familial, right? Like it's very hard to be a family when you have 100 people there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially as a new guy. I was the new guy. I knew absolutely nobody. Um, but I went because I wanted to meet Sigung Taki. I wanted to get that Jun Fan experience, as it were. But when I was there, I would say the thing that clicked most, honestly, it was probably a lot of my senior Sifu Matt Emery, because he, I remember walking up to the venue and I rang like there was a buzzer on the front door of the venue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I rang that, and then this guy opens the door and he looks at me. He looks up and down, and he goes, "Russell." And I'm like, "Yes, sir." And he's like, "Come in." And then he just puts his arm out. He gives me a big hug. He makes sure I'm taken care of. He's like, "I'm Matt. I do this. I do this. We're here to have fun. Hey, yeah, go sit over here, put your stuff down, make sure you sign in." And this was the second year they had the conference, right? Everybody knew each other. I kid you not when I say I knew nobody there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Actually, leading up to the event, I was messaging all my friends on Facebook. I'm like, "Hey, you guys going to this? You guys going to this? I don't want to be the only one."
Mm-hmm.
Um, but he made sure I was taken care of. He made sure I had rides everywhere. Um, I ran into him during the sightseeing day, just by pure happenstance. Like we broke up into groups to do our own sightseeing. We ended up at Dick's Drive-In, and like maybe an hour later, that's how long we were there eating burgers. Uh, Matt Emery shows up and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" Gives me another hug. He makes sure we're all socializing. We take a picture at the drive-in, um, and he's just constantly checking up on me. And his energy alone almost bled into everybody else, right? Because it wasn't just him that was checking up on me. He was certainly the most primary person there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my I call him my best German friend, my elusive German friend, Bill Sang. I met him there, and he was just the same. He's like, "Oh, hey, you're Russell. I'm Bill." We hit it off. Um, but everyone was just super welcoming. There were absolutely zero
Mm-hmm.
egos. That's what I should have led with. Just zero ego. Everyone was just another training buddy, another training brother, sister, etc. It wasn't Sifu Matt, Sifu Bill, Sifu Andy. It's like, "Hey, I'm Andy, I'm Bill, I'm Damon, etc., etc." And it's like that the entire week, essentially. Just everyone having a good time. "Hey, you want to train? Yeah, let's train. Let's hit pads. Oh, hey, you want to work out this round? Yeah, let's work out this round. And you want to go grab lunch? Let's go grab lunch." So it was just very, very welcoming, and it's without ego, you're able to absorb the art without prejudice, and a lot of times you look into an art and you're like, "Oh, that doesn't work," or "That would never work on me." I don't think that works in 2020. But it wasn't even that. It was like, "Hey, here's how we did it. Here's how we're going to do it today. Here are some variations of that, but let's all have fun and work the material so you're better off than when you first came in." And that being a primary goal makes sure that the quality continues to rise. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, that would be it probably.
Well, no, that made a lot of sense. Guru Anasana would say a lot of times the job of the instructor is to create an environment where the student can learn,
Yes,
right?
yes,
That,
that's beautiful.
yeah, in an environment, and that's everything. I'm so fortunate to have really great, wonderful, sweet students at my school, and martial arts. I think the world of them. I think they're progressing and all that stuff, but their personalities and who they are and the welcoming of the next person that comes in is all of those pieces and so important, something that I forget. And what you reminded me of is, you know when we want this information and we have to travel for it, we put ourselves in a vulnerable situation. Anyone who's ever wanted to do something new or meet someone new, when you show up the first time, you don't know what you're getting, at all. But to show up and be open for it, usually there's reciprocal energy that comes back, and we've seen folks in seminar, and I've probably even been that guy where there comes a time where maybe something is either I didn't feel like I was going to be very good at it, or I didn't understand it, and I kind of like stand back and watch a little bit, it's funny
Mhm.
because now I just turned 50 and I don't do that anymore. I just get right in there and I figure I'm probably going to screw it up first. Right? I tell my
Sure.
students a lot of the time when they're working on something, like, nobody does it perfect the first time. And if you do, it's luck. So don't worry
Mhm.
about all that right now. Can you get your head offline, your foot in that position? But the environment, man, that is absolutely everything. Everything. I bet you have a nice environment. Now, I know you move around a lot, okay? And you got
Mhm.
some different things. Warrior Aperture Academy,
Yes, sir.
that's your school,
Sir.
right? And do do you feel that vibe is there? Ridiculous question. Obviously you do. But,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because I taught on a military installation, right? There's a certain type of culture there,
mm-hmm.
right? A lot of people think it's going to be rigid, it's going to be very disciplinarian, and for the most part, it kind of is, right? There are certain standards you need to uphold. There are certain rules and regulations you're expected to honor. So when students come to my class, we do have a certain structure. We bow in, we bow out. Um, uh, we have certain old school rules, like we don't just throw our sticks on the ground when we're done. We set them down nicely. But when I started my classes, a big part of it was I wanted my classes to be someone's um, third place or third home, as it were, right? Because you have home, you have work, and then you have some other place. I wanted to be that place where they felt like they had no obligations other than to just go in there, have fun, put your best foot forward. If you're having an off day, that doesn't mean you still perform to the best that you were, last week. You put in what you have that day, right? And I didn't want to alienate anyone by having a certain image, right? I didn't want to be the instructor that made sure you could do 100 push-ups. It's good for you to do 100 push-ups. That was a standard I did hold, but it wasn't like, oh, if you can't do 100 push-ups, get out of my class, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I wanted them to feel safe and comfortable, but still push them past the comfort zone, right? Don't be afraid to fail. At work, you know what you're doing. This is X, Y, and Z. I have to do jobs A, B, and C. Okay. And I know exactly how to do that, hopefully. But when you come to class, this is your time to be vulnerable and have fun. And usually those don't fall hand in hand unless you're in martial arts, right? How can you have fun while being vulnerable? Well, you let go of the ego, right? Okay, I'm going to do something new here. And part of doing something new is failing. that's how you ingrain the proper muscle memory, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you get it, like you said, if you get it right the first time, that's a fluke. Like
Mm-hmm.
you shouldn't. Um, Even if you get it pretty darn near right, there's something I'm gonna tweak because if I don't tweak it, you're just gonna continue to do the same thing over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it was important for me that people could come in, have fun, and just enjoy the process of learning again, right? They're adults, they're expected to know everything. And we know that's unrealistic. We are always learning, we are always growing. So come in class, have fun, and let's just grow together, right? That way, if I can spark that fire, if I can continue to stroke that flame in martial arts, I am doing my job. I know you are growing in some way or fashion, and you can take that experience into other things of your life, other facets of your life, excuse me. So, um, with that in mind, I kept a good core of students throughout all 4 years, and I
Mm-hmm.
still keep in touch with them, in touch with them today. Now that I'm on the other side of the country, right? I still text them like at least once a week. We send random reels on Instagram. We're friends. We're not just. It's not like, oh, Sifu Russell, yada yada yada. It's like, oh, hey Russell, this is hilarious. Check this out. And it's that's. I am very proud of the vibe I created.
Sounds like a great vibe, man. From the first time I met you, you vibed with me just incredibly. And I remember there being at the associate camp. And I don't know about you, but I didn't think much of online training. Of course, I had an opinion and no experience. That seems to be the rub with how those things go, right? Uh,
Mhm.
so I done the modules and worked really, really hard to try to get those pieces from the modules. Completely nervous when I showed up.
Mhm.
Incredibly nervous, I mean, Ghost is something that's been created off the backs of fighters.
Yeah.
They paid for what they developed with blood, sweat, tears, literally,
Yes, sir.
and so that's just one of those things. I was super like nervous, and then the vibe of Phil was so nice and he was so funny, and then Jake, it's like it brought everything down in just a perfect way. And I remember speaking with you, and you were from out of town. I was from Wisconsin. I was able to do like one or two ghost classes with somebody in one seminar. But
Mhm.
outside of that, not being an MKG person or being in Minneapolis, I was like, I hope I'm gonna do okay. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And then you had done the online training and came in from elsewhere. And man,
Mhm.
I just really enjoyed your vibe. It kind of calmed me down a little bit when we got to talking. I was super nervous.
Right, dude. Absolutely, absolutely. Like it's because Phil fought in the cage,
Mm-hmm.
Jake fights in the ring, and X fought in the cage, right? So you're doing a competition art or battle tested art, and by
Mm-hmm.
battle I just mean dueling, right? Because it's sport oriented.
Where the rules
Uh,
allow you to strike and stand.
there you go, there you go. Ah, see, you still got it, you still got it.
Brother, I love it.
Um, yeah, and you're thinking like, oh, these guys are going to hold it to a high standard, and they
They
do.
do. Yeah.
But um, they take the training seriously. They don't take themselves too seriously, right? So when the ego comes down, for me being out of town, you being out of
Mm-hmm.
town, and everyone else being MKG HQ affiliated, right? I'm pretty sure they all trained there. I think
Most of them.
you and I were the only ones who weren't. Um, when that came down, like they were all jovial and everything, and even Phil was like, "Hey, don't worry, we're gonna have fun. It's gonna be cool." And then Jake will like cracking jokes from the start. Um, like for me, it was like a big exhale. I was just like, okay. And then when everyone relaxes, you're just like, you can perform better. You're not tense. You're there, you're vibing, you're flowing, right? And we actually, I'm sure you remember it, we opened with sparring after
Yeah.
introducing ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We started sparring, and Jake was my sparring partner for those opening rounds, and I was just like,
Ah.
yeah, I remember really trying to hit him. I was like, I'm gonna smack, and we're just holding the cuffs of the gloves, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we're for those of you who don't know, it's a glorified pillow fight. That's
Mm-hmm.
all it is. And we're holding the gloves by the cuff, and Jake's kind of clowning on me, respectfully clowning on
Mm-hmm.
me, right? He's just making me look bad. So I was like, all right, I gotta touch him in the face at least once, or the knee, because we were doing head and knee boxing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I really started to go for it, and he just made me look stupid. I was just like, oh God. And every time we got hit, because we were trying to be elusive, that's the goal, be elusive. Every time we got hit, we had to go down, do 10 push-ups, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at one point, Jake was like, just do him at the end, because he just kept tagging me. 'Cause I kept rushing, right? I was like, you ain't clowning me. So I kept coming in, and he would hit me, hit my 10. I come in, he get me again, do my 10, and then he's like, just do them at the end, brother. And I was like, it's the honor system. He's like, yeah, but you're not gonna get anything out of these 3 minutes if you're down there the whole time. And I was like, that's true.
That is true. And I
So
can see him saying it, but also in a sweet way.
yeah,
Right? In a nice way.
absolutely.
Like, I want you to get the most out of this 3 minutes. And if you're hopping up and down, or just, it's not going to work itself out the best.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was a good time though. It's very eye opening. So yeah, they setting the tone is huge, right? Because if you set
Absolutely.
the tone, then your expectations are somewhat understood. Um, Obviously, there's room for miscommunication there, but once your expectations are, for the most part, understood, everyone can try to rise to that level or the level of their training, and then you adjust accordingly, right? So I think that's something that's done really well with Jake, really well with the Seattle group, really well with the MKG guys, and that's something to strive for.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. So, one other thing that I wanted to ask, well, several things. For one thing is, if you could give advice, something simple to our viewers, something that they could do tomorrow that would help their martial arts or their life, what would be that advice from you?
Be Get out there and do it. Like
Brother.
how many times does our ego, and our ego's there to protect us, right? I know a lot of people say, oh, let go of the ego. I say that too. But the ego is there to protect you,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the ego is what makes you hesitate. I remember, I mean, I told you this earlier, my wife is who made me go and start training, right? I just kept thinking, oh, I'm not in condition. What if they don't like me? What if this? What if that? Your brain is designed to constantly think. It wants to make connections to things. It wants to think of different options and different variables, and it will make connections that aren't even there. That's how great our brain is and how detrimental our brain is. So if you keep thinking of reasons not to do something, you will have a million reasons not to do it, right? So you just get out there, you decide, you know what? I remember when I was a kid and I went to school and I learned something new. I sucked and then I didn't suck, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. It could be martial arts, right? It could just be a new hobby, right? It could be painting, gardening, etc. If you can think about it and you don't have a good reason not to do it within 5 seconds, go do it. Commit to doing it. Um, that's also a rule I use for myself. Like days I don't feel like working out, but I don't have a good reason not to do it. Like maybe I'm just tired. I'm not hurt or anything, just tired, just lazy. I give myself 5 seconds to just feel sorry for myself, and then I say, all right, time to go. It's the same thing in life. You feel sorry for yourself for 5 seconds. If you can't come up with a really good reason within those 5 seconds, you don't have a good reason not
Mm.
to do it. So just take the leap. It'll be okay. It'll be okay.
Absolutely. And what we found, and what I hear from you, is when we make the leap, a lot of times in martial arts, when we get there, it's not what we thought it was going to be.
Certainly.
Right? I
Yeah.
mean, uh, for Ghost, I was like, oh my gosh, this is competitive. I am a martial artist. I'm not at all really even that competitive of a dude. Uh, for me, honestly, MKG was going to Japan that same year. And my
Mhm.
son at 16 years old was coming to live with me for the very, very first time. And
Wow.
I wanted to go to Japan. But the
Mhm.
idea that I'm going to ask my son to come live with me and then go off to Japan for a week just didn't feel right. So I was like, I need something for me. I need something for me. I need something for me. And then it was doing like this ghost thing, and it was just an amazing experience. I really like that. I like your advice. Just try, right? I mean,
Yes. Mhm.
whatever it is, I always tell people like, well, you don't have to go back,
That's
right?
true. That's absolutely true.
You
Yeah.
you don't have
You're
to.
under no obligation to continue doing something you don't like, right?
Exactly.
Unless it's for your health or something. But there's in a martial arts class, no one's if you don't you went one time,
Hmm.
right? If you don't go back, no one's gonna remember you. So it's okay.
Yeah.
Now, it'll be okay regardless of what you decide afterward, you know.
And the same thing almost goes when we go to see different arts and different instructors, and like, however the instructor wants me to do it, while I'm there, I do it like that. But I
Yeah.
am going to go home and I do practice. So I'm going to choose what it is that I practice and how I practice. But at that
Mhm.
moment, whatever they're doing is, even if I'm messing it up, I usually get something out of it. So I really like that advice, brother. So
Thank you.
funny. Yeah, you're welcome. So funny you brought up Sifu Dwight. My
Mhm.
very first martial arts Guru Dana Inosanto seminar was in 1994. It was
Mhm.
at Sifu Fong's Wing Chun
Okay.
School. It was the Southeast Conference.
Okay.
And I went to go see Guru Dan with all my guys. And then all of a sudden, I saw this gentleman with these dreads come walking through with his bag. And
Mhm.
something was like, who's that? I don't know. There must have been 50 people there. But he came walking in, and I
Mhm.
was like, who's that? Who's that? And then somebody had told me who he was and stuff. So I've never really spoken with him, but I followed him for years. I watched the Jeet Kune Do podcast at times, and I was involved in the '90s when there was a lot of things splicing in different ways. And so it's kind of neat to see how there's been some splicing, but for the most part, it seems like people get along better now than they ever have. Do you,
Yeah, I think people are just smarter these days, you know.
yeah.
We understand it's not always A versus B. Sometimes there's that middle ground, right? Like I said, there's X and there's Y and then there's the transition. I think if
Mhm.
we focus on the transition, we find out that there's so much more everyone has in common than we do that separates us. And that's true across martial arts, that's true across just being human, that's true across almost every field, right? Um, but yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah, that's like a breath of fresh air for me, and it's one of the reasons when I follow you on social media and you're doing some of these different things, I'm like, go, Russell. That is so cool. Yeah, you're welcome. Everybody, as we know, has something to offer, including us, right? And so just being able to go in and try it speaks
Yeah.
to me. And you're going back now to the what conference is that again? I'm sorry. For the
Uh, the
JKD.
Jun Fan, the Jun Fan Gung Fu Institute of Seattle Instructors Conference. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. If you ever
Mhm.
find your way in this area, we'd like to have you in to show us some different things. And
Oh,
uh,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
that would absolutely be great. Brother, do you have anybody that you could recommend for this show?
I
Somebody
have
with a
so
nice
many.
story. Huh?
So the big one that comes to mind is obviously Jake from
Jake, yeah.
Ghosting, right? Jake Clark. He's a professional boxer. He's been doing Ghost since its inception. He's when he was a kid. He there were stories where uh, Jake would find Phil at university,
Ride his bike.
and or what's that?
He would ride his bike.
Yeah, and then would during the lunch break they would go and clear out the desks, and then they would just they'd start training at university, right? And then you see all these pictures where Phil's a tall guy, right? Jake is
Mm-hmm.
also very tall. But you see pictures of Phil, right? And then a tiny little Jake, right?
Yeah.
And they're doing pads. Like that's how far back they go. And he's been doing it forever. But as a professional fighter, especially today, I think today it's very hard to be a professional fighter coming up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because not only are you responsible for selling your own tickets, uh, you're pretty much responsible for your media, right? Oh, you want exposure? Put in the work, get exposure. There's social media everywhere. And it's true. So it is more accessible, but at the same time, it's like, oh, not only do I need to train for the fight and diet and etc., I also have to think about my social media presence.
Mm-hmm.
And especially today, to stay relevant, you got to push out content all the time.
Yes.
Which is why I don't push out content all the time.
It's challenging, brother.
It's so hard. It's so tiring. But with Jake being on a podcast or what have you, it allows him to help with that image. He gets to explain his story, and I won't spoil it because I assume Jake would love to be on your podcast. But in fight prep, not just camp, but literally, when he's in the back rooms preparing for his fight, he has to do so much more than everybody else, and basically doesn't he has no chance to really dial in or say, oh, the fight's happening now, until he starts his walkout. Like backstage, he has to do a lot more. He and Phil have to do a lot more than everyone else who's already warming up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to give that away, but it's a great perspective on things, right? And just to know like everything that he goes through and the work he's put in, and he's out there shining on the professional stage, putting Ghost on the map and living up to those principles, living up to those techniques. It's very inspiring, it's very motivational, and it just makes me want to be more disciplined so I can not necessarily follow in his footsteps, but follow his example.
Yeah.
Right? But I think Jake would be a good one. And please, anyone watching, don't be offended if I don't mention you, right? That's just who's on the top of my head right now. There are a lot of people, but Jake for sure.
It's great. I will reach out to Jake and see if he'd like to come on. And he told a few of those stories in that class, and I know where you're going with it. And that's really important. That was a piece that I had never thought of at all.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not easy. So that's a cliffhanger, guys. All right, that's a cliffhanger. Yes. We're gonna bring Jake in here.
Mm-hmm.
Sifu Russell. Right now, as you're in Washington, okay, and you've been moving a little bit, what are your goals right now for your martial arts? Either for you as a person or for your students?
Okay, that's a great question. So for me, okay, I recognize I'm not old, but I'm getting older, right? I will be 35 this year. But, and this is a part I struggled with a lot in the beginning of my martial arts journey, and when I first started teaching, is I am competitive, but again, the brain likes to come up with these scenarios, and I overthink things. So I've not really taken all the opportunities to compete throughout my career, right? And my career, I just mean as a martial artist.
Yeah.
I have competed. Last time I competed was 2022 in LA with all of my students, actually, not all of them, but with my students. And but I still have that itch. I still have that drive to get out there and do it, just to say that I've done it, and I grew up on all those old school movies, Blood Sport for one, where they fight on the elevated platform. I want to do a Lei Tai fight. And there are a few Lei Tai competitions in my area and other areas that I would love to do. And that's, it's full contact. Have I done full contact? No, but I just want to do it. I don't have a good reason not to do it other than, oh, I might get hurt, but I could get hurt doing anything, right? This is something I want to do. If I can get my mind right, and even if I don't get my mind right, I want to go through the process at least, right? I could still do light contact competitions. I have no problem doing that, but I really want to get out there and challenge myself. So for me, it's getting back into that fight shape. When I was fight shape, I was like 132 pounds. I was rocking it. I might not be the strongest guy. I might not be the fastest, but at that time I was like, I'm going to outwork you. You are not going to question my engine. And, I just want to get back to that. And I want to compete, right? It's just, especially if I keep putting it off, one day I'm going to be 40, one day I'm going to be 50, less opportunity to compete with medicals and everything, right? Even if you're medically fit at 50, most competitions don't allow you to compete, right? Unless it's grappling. But I want to do a kickboxing type thing. So that's my personal goal. I hope to do it within the next 2 years. Just with everything else going on, I've got to shift priorities a little bit. But as a martial arts teacher, I think you've noticed, but I've kind of shifted gears a little bit. While I've been in California, I taught group classes. I had a normal class. We met every week. We met 3 times a week, excuse me. I am slowly trying to shift into more seminar workshop work. And I'm trying to shift more into the self-defense portion, simply because I grew up on Jeet Kune Do, right? My martial arts training grew up with Jeet Kune Do.
I'm with you.
And I think Jeet Kune Do is, some people like to discount it, right? And I think people that discount it just haven't
experienced it.
I'm sorry?
Experienced it?
Yeah, they haven't experienced it, and they don't understand it, right? And it's important to understand that there is principle, there's technique, and there's application, right? And it's not that those things are separated, but they're all part of the package. And if you understand how to apply under duress and understand the principle behind these techniques, then you could start to make it work more effectively, right? And Jeet Kune Do isn't just about, oh, let me go pak sao lap sao, straight blast, yada, yada, yada. That could be part of it. That's the art, right? But now I take some aspects of that. How do I trap, right? Trapping doesn't have to look like bang, bat, 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 right? Sometimes we're just out here and maybe I pat the hand down, then I go, right? Or maybe you throw that jab and I just happen to catch it. I am leaning more toward seminar work because I feel like I can really, one, it's different for me. And with differences, that's where we grow, right? But two, I think in a seminar experience, I can convey those ideas better than in a classroom experience, simply because seminar time is learning time. This is something I learned from Rick Fay, actually. Seminar is where you're going to learn, right? It's not training time. At seminar, you take your notes, you do something new, you go back to the lab. That's your training time. Yes. That's where you do it. Seminar is your time to learn. Let me give you these ideas. Let me convey them clearly. in this amount of time and space. And then you go back and you put in the work, right?
Mhm.
Everyone wants to be Bruce Lee, but doesn't want to put in the Bruce Lee effort. This is the time where I give you some ideas and now you put it in the lab, which is also part of my training. Like now, it's even though I have all these techniques in my brain and somewhat in my muscle memory, I still need to go back to the lab and do hours and hours and hours of repetition, right? It's not done. It's never done. It's always refined and adapted. That's all any martial art is when you think about it. So, yes, those are my two goals. One, get back into fight shape and actually compete.
Mhm.
Two, get more out there with seminar work in Jeet Kune Do and promoting Jeet Kune Do.
That's amazing. That's great. What I heard there too is there's, you're challenging yourself on both aspects, like a little yin and yang. Okay.
Yes.
Um, for one thing, I was able to have a conversation one time in an airport with lights out UFC fighter. I'm spacing into his name. Lytle. Chris Lytle, I believe.
Oh, Chris Lytle. Yeah.
Yeah. And we had a conversation, and I was able to buy him dinner because we were both stuck at the airport in Chicago. And we had a conversation because at that time period, I was working on jujitsu and I was going to do my first jujitsu competition. And the
Mhm.
reason for that was is that I found myself helping this MMA group. I became a striking coach. And it felt,
Oh, wow.
yeah, well, I just kind of fell into it. And I was teaching JKD and Kali at my school, and they were in the next town over. And
Mhm.
if I went there and worked as a striking coach for them, then I would be able to do jujitsu for free because I was living in my school
Um,
and things were somewhat limited. So it was like a no-brainer.
mhm.
But I'll never
Right.
forget like being in a corner of somebody and like feeling like, all right, well, all right, I'm helping you. I'm helping. Now go out there, go get them. Right. I was like, I should probably feel that one time before I'm like, oh, just go get him, right? And the body was
Mhm.
all messed up, but I did a couple of jujitsu competitions just to kind of feel that peace,
Mhm.
that's really, really important for sharpening the blade. I think you're going to be an outstanding seminar instructor, brother, and I'm really happy that that is something that you're interested in doing because, you know, a lot of the folks that have been doing seminars for a long time are they might be retiring at some point, you know,
Mhm.
and and that's okay, right? But the next
Yeah.
generation to come out and do some things and just plant some seeds, man. So,
Yeah.
so important.
Planting seeds. That's I was actually talking about that with my wife and kids 2 days ago. It's nurturing seeds. Because my kids, they're kids, their hobbies change, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what's important to me as a parent is making sure that I water those seeds, I water those interests, because I don't know where they're gonna go. I don't. I don't know if they're gonna continue with this passion or not. But if I don't water it, if I just stifle it, then that option is gone forever,
Mm.
right? So if I can encourage my kids, if I can encourage my students in martial arts, as long as it leads you somewhere, I am doing my job, right? Martial arts doesn't have to lead to more martial arts,
Mm-hmm.
but the discipline from the martial arts, the philosophy of martial arts, the concepts of martial arts can bleed into other facets. And if I water that seed properly, if that's something that sticks with you, grows in you, and I allow you to take it somewhere else, I'm doing my job. We're doing our job as instructors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's huge, right? Because I don't have to be the best martial arts instructor, uh, but I'll be damned if I'm a bad one.
Yeah.
Okay. I am gonna just say, all right, here's a punch. Best of luck to you. Like, all right, well, here's a punch, and we can use it offensively, counter offensively, as a deterrent, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm going off on a tangent, but you get my point. I
Absolutely, brother.
water those seeds. We want to set up the best possible experience for not just our students, but or not just our students as martial artists, but our students as human beings, right? So
Absolutely. Guru Rick
that's
Fay would tell us a lot
always
of the times, like, he'll look out and he'll be like, I know why you're here. It's not the reason that you said. Most of us are fighting some type of other battle that's going on, and that's where the martial arts and overcoming some hurdles, being able to try new things without being worried about what everybody else is thinking, all those things
Mhm.
just cultivate. I don't know, they made me a better human. That's all I know. But prior to martial arts, it's, man, I didn't want to try anything new. I was very kind of whatever and very opinionated. No experience. That always it fascinates me to this day. Opinion and experience. Prior to the
Yes.
Ghost camp, my opinion was online martial arts. Like, well, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, you know? And
Yeah.
lo and behold, you don't get it all. But if we put in the work while we're training for this piece, then
Mhm.
everything kind of works itself out. I've never been in the ring, okay? Never ever. My son was living with me when right prior to the Ghost Associate Trainer, and I was
Mhm.
training, and everything was so different in my household that my son literally was telling my wife, like, I think my dad's going to get back in the ring. He's going to get back in the ring. And I was like, oh, okay. And then my wife had asked me, she goes, I didn't know you'd ever been in the ring. And I was like, not to fight. No, that looks like it hurts. You know what I mean? But the training methods and the things that, were just, it was just really nice to hear, you know? And that's a
Mhm.
piece of it. Most of us just want to help people as best we can. And martial arts seems to be the tool the creator gave us, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
Without a
Mhm.
doubt, without a doubt.
Yeah. I mean, not everyone helps everyone the same way. Again, going back to A and B and then finding the similarities between those, right? Everyone helps someone. We just have different avenues of helping them, right? Whether it's philosophically, whether it's spiritually, physically, in the case of martial arts instructors, we're it's just one of those things where, again, if we're focusing on what separates us, and at some point we should, because that's how we grow. Um, a lot of times we miss what links us together, right? And I keep coming back to this because I talk about it with my wife all the time,
Sure.
right? And again, when I teach my martial arts, I teach it the same way. It's not the curriculum. It's not the curricula. All the techniques are basically the same. It's the training method that sets you apart. So before I go down on that tangent, I'm going to let you continue with what it was you were saying. Sorry.
Brother, you are my guest, okay? You go on any tangent you want to. What would you when you talked about A, B, or in the transition, or X and Y in the transition, at our school, we had a conversation not that long ago, right? So you have your yin and yang, right? Whatever, your two different types of energy. And when we look at that, we see two different, completely different things, right? Right,
Mhm.
wrong, all this different stuff, and a lot of it's the Western mind. But at the same time, what if the rub is really to have one foot on both sides and to achieve balance and to not pick one like this is right and this is wrong? That's the greatest thing about martial arts for me, and I'm sure you've experienced it because uh, I can have two different instructors that teach two different similar but different concepts. Both of
Mhm.
those instructors could slap me and show me that what it was they were doing was right. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, so I guess there was two answers. Why? Because I knew one and there was a whatever it is. Now I have to figure the one that'll work out for me and my students. Not always the same thing, right? But trying to keep one foot on each side is really, really important, brother. Really, yeah. This
That's
conversation, and
huge.
I just turned 50. I keep saying that, but I'm feeling old.
Happy birthday, belated birthday.
Yay! Happy 15 years, bro, of martial arts. That's
Thank you, sir.
amazing.
Thank you.
You know, uh, but what I was going to say is as I'm turning 50, I I remember when there was a lot of bickering. And I really like the fact that the next generation is just like on fire with this thing. And there seems to be less bickering. It's more like, okay, well, let's go train. Let's go train.
Yes.
Right. And I just remember long ago, in the midst of a lot of the conversations, people would ask, what would Bruce Lee be doing right now? And all I could think of is, I think he'd be training and probably not having this conversation.
That's it. Absolutely. Absolutely. You get it, my friend.
Well, that was just my opinion. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know. I don't even want to be here right now, 9 out of 10 times. But, it's a beautiful art. He was a beautiful man. And everybody's going to have their perspective, you know?
Mhm.
So, Russell, I appreciate you stopping by to talk with us. I thoroughly enjoyed your presence at the Ghost Associate Training Camp. I've enjoyed watching you ever since and all of the great things that you're doing, and I hope you continue to do more. Would you like
Thank
to
you so
come?
much.
You're welcome. Would you like to come back and see us again? I'd love to have you back at some time period and just talk about what's going on, maybe as you're looking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For you, my friend, I will make the time. I will make the time.
It's so funny. Okay, so to everyone who's out there right now, usually my video's on the other side. And Russell actually helped me figure out how to make this happen all together. So appreciate you, Russell.
Teamwork.
It's been just amazing. And you have a good day. We will catch up soon. All right.
Yes, sir.
All
You
right.
too.
This is Jamie Sparling and Russell Dulay here signing off for the FormABLE Podcast. Like, subscribe, leave us a comment, by the way. You want to know what Ghost is? Huh? Leave us a comment. We'll get back to you. We'll talk to you.
Yeah, and to plug Jamie a little bit, Jamie is one of the few people in the U.S. actually allowed to include Ghost in his curriculum if he so chooses. So feel free to reach out to Jamie, myself also, and if you are somewhere else, feel free to reach out to either of us so we can point you in the right direction.
Absolutely, because that's what it's all about. Come
Yes,
about
sir.
for
If we raise the standard of everybody, then we have no choice but to raise the standard of ourselves. And that's how everyone grows. That's how everyone gets better.
And with that, I will be leaving you. We will be leaving you. Thank you for joining us for the FormABLE Podcast. Have a good day. Amen. Take care.